that is like infinitely better. Okay, so this is actually the second time I'm recording this. The first time I did it, there were a lot of presentation discrepancies that I had around it, and I just really wanted to remake the video. So this video is going to be primarily about how to navigate a job interview and how to really make it the best it can be and leave a lasting impression on your interviewers if you are going through multiple rounds of interviews. So with that being said, we'll kick it off with the first thing is to, number one, research the company that you are applying for. And that's gonna help you do a lot of things. And primarily, it helps you to get an understanding of the company that you're actually trying to become a part of. And it gives you some sort of background as to, especially if you actually haven't applied yet, gives you a way to tailor your resume that really best suits it for the job position and the company culture that you may be trying to become a part of also. So when you are doing the research for the company, it's very imperative that you take notes on some of their key clients, their company culture, and things that stand out to you personally that catch your eye. Because at the end of the day, it's cool to, see all of the things that the company may want you to see, but something that stands out to you shows that there may be something that they haven't really thought about that they could either, improve on or just, I guess, feel appreciation for. So, yeah, it goes a very long way. I'll definitely tell you that when you're inside the interview and you bring up something that they may have even forgotten about, and they're just like, oh yeah, cool. That was actually a thing that we did for a client all on a whim, and you could elaborate on a story, and it causes a deeper connection with you and your interviewer. So yeah, definitely research the company would be my first point. And secondly, so number two would be to prepare questions for your interview. Now, surprisingly, the first point, researching the company, will actually help you prepare questions for the company that you're applying to. So good questions would be, as I did mention like 2 or 3 times already, what is the corporate environment, or maybe just the general startup environment of this business? What is the typical work day like? And I think that right there actually gets on a different point. So depending on the type of interview you're going into, because especially in the software field, there are going to be multiple types of interviews that you're going in. So usually the first one is more of a social soft skills screening, where there's making sure that you're not too crazy, So they're going to be talking to you just about general stuff, your background, things like that. So it's important to know your audience for the type of interview you're going into. So the first 2 points that I did make about, company culture, what kind of typical days are like, stuff like that, that's going to be more important for your first interview when they're doing that kind of screening. And then when you're going on to something like the technical interview, where they're asking you specific questions, it's going to be important to ask as much questions, especially if you don't understand the code that the coding problem you may be given. It's more important that you demonstrate your thinking process than you just being like, oh, I guess I don't know what to do in here, and then just throw your hands up. Because it shows that, you are willing to learn, especially in the moment, than just to either give up or just stay stuck. So that would be quite important. So that would probably be, the 2 aspects of preparing questions to make sure you're ready for those kind of aspects of the interview. So that brings me on to the third point, prepare answers. So specifically when your interviewer is actually asking you questions about maybe your resume or your work history, or even, they always have those typical ones like, when have you ever had a conflict at the workplace and how would you solve that? It's best not to just have some preformed answer. Geez, that's actually a part of my next point. Not just part of a preformed answer, but it's also important to attach some sort of anecdote that goes best with your answers. So, if you had some sort of conflict in your workplace, try and tie it to something that had happened specifically in school, or maybe at, even doesn't even have to be associated with software. It could just be outside of any type of job and how you went about solving that. So yeah, especially tied to experiences that you've actually had, makes a more, deeper connection, and it's more authentic, true to who you are. So yeah. And the technical aspect, I would definitely say make sure you're reading up on the book, How to Ace the Coding Interview. That one's going to help you a lot, especially, trying to at least understand the problem sets that you may be facing in the technical interview. So yeah, that would be my best advice for part 2 of your interviews. So yeah, so dress appropriately for your interviews. A lot of people don't realize that when they do go into an interview, they either dress too formal or too casual. And that is something that they don't really realize, and it leaves a very lasting impression. So the really key thing is dress, semi-formal, but then comfortable. And I don't mean like comfortable where it looks like, you borrowed some clothes from your friend that literally just lost weight and didn't need, his outfits anymore. You got to make sure the stuff is like fitted. You want to put your best foot forward, get something like some decently fitted khakis for you, maybe some boat shoes, loafers. I don't know what loafers are. I'm gonna have to look that up, but yeah, some, pretty casual dress shoes, and you can get like a button down or maybe even a polo if you feel more comfortable in something like that. So yeah, that would be my first point for actually during your interview. Point number 2, for, on the interview day, I would say arrive early. I would say, this is one of the flaws I've had, not just interviews, but in general, I always try and get there on time, but I would definitely say the days, when I have arrived to an interview early or even at work early, you have more time to just relax, be more comfortable with yourself. Because a lot of times, you get there just on time and you're like, where do I go? What do I do? So yeah, it goes a long way if you're actually there on time or early and you feel, at least at ease in the building, in the new environment that you haven't been in before. So yeah, that would be a huge aspect of that. So it goes on to point number 3, just relax. A lot of times people get really anxious and tense up and they're like all closed off. When you're having like a lasting conversation with someone, it really helps if you just like mellow out, open yourself up. That kind of non-verbal body language just shows that you're more open to questions coming your way and you're not really on the defensive. So yeah, I'd definitely say just, mellow out. And, someone who is a little more relaxed in the situation, you're going to be able to express a lot more ideas and concepts like that without, feeling like you're under pressure. So yeah, definitely relax. And that brings me on to the final few points. So after your interview, it's going to be very important. This is something people always forget to do. And it's an aspect that really puts you above the rest if you do this. And it's follow up. Like within 24 hours of that interview, you want to send whatever interview, it may be your screening interview or your technical interview, you want to send a follow-up email or some sort of message on LinkedIn, thanking them and letting them know, aspects of the interview that you thought went well. You can even ask some questions, like after the interview, is there anything that they would recommend be better and stuff like that. And it really goes a long way because it leaves a lasting impression in their head that you were still thinking about the position and you were definitely interested, instead of just walking away and just leaving it like flat like that, So I would definitely say do a follow-up. The final point I would say for the interview is, if you do get rejected, this is the be-all and, or I guess the worst case scenario, is to just be professional if you do get rejected, because a lot of people from time to time, they just blow up, completely badmouth the company, get extremely angry, send terrible messages and stuff like that. But it's important to be critical of what may have went wrong during your interview and how you can improve. So especially with your follow-up email, you could actually follow up after a rejection letter. This is something that isn't really required, but if you do follow up in a very professional manner, you may not even realize, but it goes a long way, because the recruiter or interviewer be like, oh yeah, you know that guy, there may be in a small aspect that you may not have fit their company at the time, and later on there could be a position that comes up and they're like, oh, you know, remember that guy that we interviewed, you know, so and so. Especially if you're going to interview for a position again, you could, you know, end up getting the job the second time, or just getting a random, you know, message from them on LinkedIn or an email saying, hey, the interview didn't work out, but we have another position that we may feel that you are a better fit for. So yeah, that would be the summation of all my tips. I would actually say a final bonus on your interview day: definitely bring some water. I learned this from like a random econ professor back in college, but when you're doing like public speaking, your mouth gets super dry. Like, you're like, water.
I don't need it. I need it!
So, you know, it really goes a long way when you're trying to just relax, especially when you're having a very long interview. Like, some may go on for 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour and a half in some cases, where there's just so much to talk about, so much to really express during the interview, that you end up just running way over. That actually happened to me during my like second interview with my company. So I'd definitely say have some water on hand, you know, yeah, be parched. With that being said, that is the summation of all of the tips and tricks I would give to you for having a successful interview. So yeah, thanks for watching. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Let me know anything else that you would really be interested in learning about as far as software field, or maybe career tips. So yeah, thanks for watching.